We get a lot of questions from our customers about how to complete the application inquiry form. In this video, we'll walk you through the process and show you what to do. We start by filling in some basic information about yourself, about the company that you work for. So first of all, the contact name. So this would be your name, in my case, an engineer. Then your job title. And the name of the company that you work for. So in our case, Camelot Motion Control. Telephone number, so this is your contact number. So if there's any problems that we have with this form, we're able to contact you directly about it. So preferably a direct number rather than a switchboard number. And then we have space for an inquiry reference. This is your inquiry reference, your project reference, whatever term you use for this particular one, but it's just to help you identify the project that you're working on, and therefore we can communicate to you in the same terms as well. So in this case, I'll enter my project. Then we start getting some information that we need about the application itself. So firstly, it's just a basic description of what the application is. Here we have a couple of examples. It might be a machine guard, it might be a toolbox cover. For this particular one, we'll use the example of an access hatch for it. We then ask you to describe the action you require from the gas strut on your application. This can be something very simple. It can be saying that you just want it to lift from a horizontal to a vertical position, as we'll probably see in some kind of access hatch application. It could be something far more technical that you want to try and get across to us with it. So whether it's the case that you wish the spring to take over at a certain point in the lift, or whether you want it to have so much sort of handling force either to be able to pull it down or to open it. Just anything that really helps us understand what you're trying to achieve from it. As I say, on this one, it's a very simple application, so we are just simply going from horizontal opening. The next section, we're asking for a few more detailed bits of information about the application itself, the length of the lid, assuming that it is a lid or whatever the application happens to be. So again, keeping it nice and simple, dimension A, which is the overall length of the lid. In this case, we'll use 1000 millimeters for that 1 meter. We then ask for the position of the handle from the pivot. So we have the pivot point down here and we have the handle illustrated here. Typically this will be less than the overall length of the lid. It's not always the case, but it's usually some distance less in most cases. So on this one we'll put 800 millimeters. We then ask for the lid thickness. This helps us to determine the weights of the application, and yeah, it's a useful bit of information for us. So on this one, we'll use the example of 25 millimeters for that. And then finally, the angle of opening. This is relative to the fixed position. In a lot of cases, it will be 90 degrees that people want it to open to, but it can be anything from a few degrees to over 90 on that one. But we'll stick it nice and simple and say 90 degrees here. The next question we ask is, are there any restrictions on the mounting space? And if yes, can we identify these on the sketch or the drawing? One of the big problems we have is that people won't advise of any sort of mounting restrictions that there may be. We will go and specify where the springs need to be and go back to the customer and say, I'm sorry, you can't mount it there because there is something in the way of it. There's some reinforcement, there's a plate, there's whatever. So if there is anything that we do need to worry about, if there's any problems with where we can't mount the spring, then please use this space to identify it here to us. It doesn't have to be detailed information, but just to give us a guideline of it or give us a sketch of it as to what that may be. In this case, I'll say there are none. So we have no problems with it. We then have the application lid weight, and we ask for this information in kilograms. So in this one, we'll say it's 100 kilos. The next question is the application lid weight. In this instance, we'll put a figure of 25 kilos in there. We then ask where the hinge point is relative to the lid. So is it on the top face, i.e. the lid is hinging from the top, or is it on the lower face? Two radio buttons here, just select the one that's appropriate to your application. Then ask you to provide your own drawing sketches available or dimensioned drawings. So in this section, so the first bit is, do you have any preference when the gas spring takes over lifting? So this is where we're trying to describe the phenomenon of instant lift or after so many degrees. If you think in an application such as a car boot, for instance, where you have gas struts on there, you don't have instant lift on there. You physically have to lift it up by 5, 10, 15 degrees before the gas strut takes over, and it's this kind of information that we need to see here if you want that kind of behaviour to the gas strut. So on this one we will say 15 degrees is where we want it to take over. And then, do you know your centre of gravity? So this is the centre of gravity of the item being lifted. Again, if it's a lid, we can say where that is relative to the hinge point on there. And again, we're quoting this in millimetres. So these are complete guesses on this one, but we'll say that the centre of gravity is in the middle of the lid itself, so 500 millimetres along that 1000 millimetre length, and it is 12.5 millimetres above it. Then have either a separate, use this grid here, which to be fair, most people don't use, or it can be a separate drawing or a model that can be sent to us with details of that. Okay, then ask a few more sort of personal questions about it, and this is about the type of application that's being used on. So, will the gas spring be subject to vibration whilst on the application? Yes or no, and please describe. So, in our example here of an access hatch, that is something that is highly unlikely to be subject to vibration, but were it to be an engine cover on a diesel vehicle, for instance, then perhaps that is something that would be exposed to high levels of sort of vibration and whilst it's being used, and the high frequency vibration on there. So on this one we'll say no. Again, next question is about the operating temperature range, and this is just to give us an idea of the type of where we need to pitch the lifting of the gas strut. So if you've asked for instant lift after 15 degrees of movement, but actually your product is operating in sub-zero temperatures, that's very different to 15 degrees of lift that occurs in temperature, say 60 degrees on there, or at room temperature, and will affect the handling of the application. So we need to know this type of information if it's available. On this one, in a lot of cases, if it's room temperature, it will be sort of 20 degrees or thereabouts, and maybe a range of 15 to 30 degrees as we'll use in this example. The next question is about the operating environment and the type of material that's required. So really, do you require standard carbon steel gas strut or a stainless steel gas strut? Again, radio buttons to help you choose on there. Then to understand how often the gas strut's used, we look at the number of operations or cycles per day. We'll say this one isn't used particularly frequently, it may be used 10 times per day. The number of springs per application, the general sort of rule, best practice is to use 2 gas struts per application. It may be more than that, it may be only 1 depending on what you're using, but generally it would be 2. A little bit more information about how many springs you require per year. Say on this one that it's 5,000. Okay, the next question we look at is the spring or strut type. This is really just to help us identify the type of products you think you need in order to lift the application. You don't have to know the answer to this one, and in most cases most people won't, but if you do have sort of a particular preference, if it is, for example, a locking gas strut that you think you need to specify on here, then put that particular product. But as I say, if you don't know, you don't know, and you can just put gas strut on there and we will do the difficult bit for you or talk it through with you to get a better understanding of what you're trying to achieve. Then ask for information on the delivery or batch quantity, so really how often you're looking to take delivery of these units. And then customer part number. You may have an existing part number for this. You may have a part number already specified for a gas strut to fit on your application. You can provide this type of information here. In this example, we'll say this is not applicable, and we will use a Camlock part number for it. A bit of information then about on if you are currently purchasing this product from someone else, the current price that you're paying, and which is a fairly obvious question. And this one, we're not buying it from anyone, so it's not applicable. And if you have a current supplier of the product as well, if you can fill in this information here. Again, in this example, this will be not applicable. Finally, there's a space for any additional comments you want to make. This is a free text area for you, so it's just if you have anything else that you feel is pertinent to us to understand about this application. It could be that this access hatch, we've said it's not exposed to it, it's indoors, it's not exposed to any sort of particular difficult environment, but there are applications where it could be. So, it could be that there is dust is prevalent in the atmosphere. It could be that there is some kind of chemical or salt water or something like that that is pertinent to what we're trying to achieve from the application. So this is your opportunity to put in anything else about the application here that will help us get a better answer to you on this. And that's how you complete our application inquiry form. If you have any problems still, give us a call on 0116 274 3600. Alternatively, contact us through the website www.camlock.com.